I am King Double Nine, Legend of the Sword! Ah! Hey, what's up, you guys? Film Fan 0599 here again, and today we're going to review King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. So, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword stars Charlie Hunnam and Jude Law. What this film is basically about, it's about, this guy named Arthur, and he doesn't really know too much about his past until he raises his sword and he realizes that he is the rightful heir to the throne. So, what did I think of King Arthur, Legend of the Sword? Now, King Arthur, I actually was pretty excited for, unlike a lot of people. I thought this looked like a really cool fantasy medieval action movie. I was kind of excited for it. I was really looking forward to it. It was in my top 5 of the summer. I was pumped for this movie. I could not wait to see King Arthur. And then, I saw the movie. And it really wasn't that good. I will say this, I don't hate it as nearly as much as some other people. I know some people really hated this movie, like my good friend 22 Tiger Dude and Jackson Fulcher. I know they really hated this movie. But, me, I mean, to me, it's a mediocre and just forgettable movie, really. That's what I really saw King Arthur, Legend of the Sword as. Just a mediocre and just kind of just forgettable movie, really. It's one of those movies you see and then you're just like, for the next few days you're like, oh yeah, I saw that movie. It's just a really forgettable movie. So, let's get into my positives, because I do have positives with the film. First being, two of the actors in the movie. There were 2 actors I thought were actually really good in the movie. First being Charlie Hunnam. He was really good. He was by far the best one out of any of the actors. He seemed like the only guy that was, trying to convey emotion and trying to give a good performance, really. He was great. I really enjoyed him in the movie. He brought a lot of charisma to the King Arthur character. And, he really did a great job. I really enjoyed him in the movie. He made me really care for his character. And, yeah, he just did a really great job. And he apparently really fought for this role. So I'm really glad that he got the role, because it definitely seemed like he really was trying, and he did give a really good performance in this movie. And another one, there's this chick that does magic and whatever. I thought whoever played her was really good too. I thought she did a pretty good job in the movie. So yeah, those were really the only 2 actors I enjoyed in the movie and thought they were good. There was one scene in the movie where I thought the editing worked kind of nicely. It was, I will just say this, it's a scene where where Arthur tells a story. That's all I'll say. I think the editing really worked in that scene. I thought it was actually pretty solid. So yeah, I will say that that one scene, I did think the editing quite worked very nicely in my eyes. The opening scene was actually really cool. I thought the movie started off actually very nicely. The opening scene was actually really cool. I thought the movie would go somewhere after that. I was like, okay, that was a really cool opening scene. Let's see what the rest of the movie has to offer. And then, yeah, that happened. There was some solid writing here and there that I thought was pretty good. Just here and there, really. And the directing wasn't too bad with the movie at times either. I did think Guy Ritchie did a pretty solid job at times with the directing in the movie, and the cinematography at times wasn't too bad either. So, yeah. Now the negatives with this movie, because there's a few of them. First being the acting in this movie. The acting is so dang lifeless in this movie that you can literally hear crickets chirping, because that's how chirping, that's not the right one, but still, you get the point. It's that lifeless in this movie. Jude Law as the villain, I love Jude Law, great actor, but man, did he just was so bland in this movie, and especially, one scene that I'm supposed to find so serious, I was dying of laughter because of how he screams in that scene. It's just, what the oh man, Jude Law, what were you doing, man? He was not that good. He was just a typical, movie bad guy, really. He's your typical movie bad guy, and I just didn't enjoy Jude Law. He could have done so much better. You know, the one dude you see in all the movies, you know, he was in Gladiator, he was in Guardians and stuff, like, you know, that guy, like, I always forget his name, he has, like, some weird name, he was in Blood Diamond too, but he was alright, like, I didn't really care for him either, and, Adam Gillen, you know, the guy who plays Lord Baelish on Game of Thrones, he was in this movie too, and I could care less about his character either, like, seriously, mostly all these characters in this movie I could care less for, and their acting was so lifeless as well. Like, seriously, like, all those guys, their acting was so lifeless in this movie. Plus their characters as well, I could care less about them. The only characters I cared about in this movie were King Arthur and the chick that did the magic. That's the only two characters I cared about in this movie, because it seemed like those were the only two that were trying, and really seemed like, you know, complex characters. All the rest of them, no. Like, just, they're so wooden and so bland, these characters, that it's just like, why? Seriously. And the action sequences. Okay, I'll combine two, actually. The action sequences and the editing. Oh my goodness. Now, I didn't hate the movie, but there were two things I absolutely did hate about the film. And the first thing being the action slash the editing. This is some of the worst editing I think I've seen in a long, like, I want to say this is, like, up there with, like, Resident Evil The Final Chapter. No, that's on a whole nother level. But, man, the editing is bad in this movie. Like, it is so quick cam, like, it is shaky cam, quick cut galore. Seriously, even in the beginning of this movie, like, they show Arthur's, like, kind of childhood and backstory a little bit, and they do it in such the most slop, in the sloppiest way possible, with this horrible editing montage. Like, oh my goodness, like, the editing is so terrible, especially towards the end. It seriously was giving me a migraine. I was watching this in the theater, and it was just giving me a gigantic migraine because of how bad the editing was in this movie. It's that bad. Like, it's so bad, the editing. Like, it's easily the worst thing about this movie. Like, seriously, it's like Guy Ritchie or anybody else, it's like they didn't know how to edit an action scene, really. The only cool action scene in this movie, really, was the opening scene, because there was no, like, quick cut or shaky cam nonsense in that. Really. That's it, really. Like, the opening scene was really the only cool action scene in the movie. Everything else was just quick cut and shaky cam galore. Like, seriously, the editing is so bad in this movie. It is easily the worst thing about this film. Oh man, the life, like, just, like, it seemed like nobody had any chemistry with each other whatsoever. Like, seriously, the chemistry with all the characters, like, they try to build a team upon with, like, King Arthur and stuff. They have no chemistry with each other whatsoever. The writing is lifeless for the most part, really. Like, the writing is very lifeless and very bland. The directing, I already kind of mentioned that with the editing and stuff. It's not that good. Like, there were some times where, like I said, I think Guy Ritchie did a great job, but there are other times where I think he just did a really terrible job. And man, and Guy Ritchie's a good director. Sure, he's made some bad stuff like Spirited Away or Spirited Away or whatever, like that one with Madonna. That was awful. But, like, he's made stuff like Snatch and, you know, like both the Sherlock Holmes movies, so he's done some good stuff. But this is not one of them. Like, this was not one of them, and I was kind of disappointed. Like, he just did not do a good job directing this movie for the most part. He really didn't. And, man, the visual effects. This was the other thing I absolutely hated about this movie. The visual effects look like something out of a PlayStation 2 video game. Heck, a PlayStation 2 video game was better than this. Like, seriously. Oh, my goodness. Oh, man, I don't want to spoil it, but I'll just say this. It involves a snake, and holy moly, that was bad. Like, that was really, really bad. Like, the way to use that was really terrible. Like, it is so bad. Like, the visual effects are easily the other worst thing about this movie, because, man, oh man, these visual effects are terrible. Like, seriously, they are awful. Oh my goodness. Especially another scene, like, where Charlie Hunnam's just fighting a bunch of people. Lord almighty, they look like a bunch of rubber people. Like, seriously, the visual effects are awful. And lastly, the movie is so boring. Holy moly, is this movie boring. It is so lifeless. Like, literally, when nothing is going on, it's very boring to watch. Like, the acting is lifeless, the action scenes are filmed terribly, you're obviously gonna be bored throughout the movie. And man, for the 2 hours and 6 minutes of this movie, I was bored out of my mind. Because I was just sitting in the theater like, okay. Like, seriously, I almost fell asleep. Like, it's that boring. Like, I'm just like, how? Like, it is that boring. You have so much cool elements and stuff, and you're making them so boring. I don't really know. Overall, King Arthur Legend of the Sword, it's not a good movie. Like, it's not a bad movie, like I said. It's not a terrible movie like some other people have said, but man, is it a boring and just mediocre and forgettable film. So it's time for my official grade on King Arthur Legend of the Sword, and my official grade on King Arthur Legend of the Sword is a C. It's an okay movie at best. I really don't see myself even kind of remembering this movie because it was just that forgettable. Like, seriously, it is just a throwaway movie for the summer. It's really just that. It's a boring, forgettable, throwaway movie. So, yeah, King Arthur Legend of the Sword gets a C. So, if you've seen King Arthur Legend of the Sword, what did you think about it? Leave in the comment section below. And I'm FilmFan0599, and we'll see you all later. Peace.